Have you ever heard one of those political ideas that's just so out there,
Yeah.
so wild that you just have to know if there's any truth to it? Well,
Oh, yeah.
that's what we're doing today.
Right.
We're deep diving into this valuetainment YouTube video.
Okay.
And it's making some pretty eyebrow-raising claims
So, yeah,
about how Donald Trump could use Dogecoin
Uh-huh.
to give every taxpayer a $5,000 dividend.
Okay.
Now, Valuetainment,
Mm-hmm.
they're known for their business and finance content.
Right.
They often feature interviews with entrepreneurs and experts.
Okay.
So to see them kind of delve into this blend of politics and cryptocurrency is
Wow. Yeah.
fascinating, to say the least.
Yeah.
The core idea, as it's presented in the video, is to leverage Dogecoin's blockchain technology
Right.
to track government spending,
Mm-hmm.
identify waste and fraud,
Okay.
and then distribute 20% of those savings back to taxpayers.
Interesting.
Trump himself is actually shown in the video endorsing this concept.
Right.
He says, I love it. A 20% dividend, so to speak, for the money that we're saving by going after the waste and fraud and abuse and all the other things that are happening. I think it's a great idea.
Wow.
So what do you think? Could this actually work?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The video definitely paints a rosy picture.
Uh-huh.
But there are some serious practical and economic hurdles to consider.
Let's start with the Dogecoin angle.
Sure.
Why Dogecoin specifically?
Yeah.
Is it just because of Trump's known affinity for the cryptocurrency?
That's certainly part of the narrative that the video presents.
Okay.
But it is worth noting that the underlying concept of using blockchain for transparency and accountability in government spending,
Mm-hmm.
that isn't entirely new.
Right.
So in theory, a public ledger could make it easier to track where money goes,
Okay.
identify inefficiencies,
Uh-huh.
and potentially reduce fraud.
Okay.
But whether Dogecoin is the ideal platform for that is debatable.
The video seems to gloss over the potential downsides of using cryptocurrency for government transactions.
Right.
Wouldn't that introduce a whole new level of volatility and risk?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dogecoin, in particular, is known for its price fluctuations.
Right.
Imagine a scenario where government funds are held in Dogecoin
Uh-huh.
and the value suddenly plummets.
Yeah.
That could have disastrous consequences.
It could.
And then there's the question of scalability.
Oh.
Can Dogecoin's infrastructure handle the volume of transactions
Right.
involved in running a government?
Yeah.
These are all questions that need careful consideration.
Okay, so let's say for argument's sake that the technical side is ironed out.
Okay.
The video then claims that cracking down on fraud could actually trigger a recession.
Wow.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one.
It seems counterintuitive.
It does.
But
yeah.
the video's argument hinges on the concept of velocity of money.
Okay.
Essentially, they're saying that if you suddenly remove a significant amount of money from circulation,
Mm.
even if that money was being spent fraudulently,
Right.
it could slow down economic
So
activity.
it's like pulling a rug out from under the economy,
Yeah.
even if that rug was made of ill-gotten gains.
It's a bit of an oversimplification,
Yeah.
but that's the gist of it.
Okay.
Think of it this way.
Yeah.
If there's less money flowing through the system,
Mm-hmm.
businesses might see reduced demand,
Okay.
leading to cutbacks,
Yeah.
layoffs,
Right.
and ultimately a contraction of the economy.
So we're essentially rooting for a certain level of fraud to keep the economy humming along?
Again, that's a bit extreme.
Okay.
The point the video is trying to make is that any large-scale economic policy change,
Yeah.
even one aimed at reducing something as harmful as fraud,
Mm-hmm.
can have unintended consequences.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But beyond the economic arguments,
Sure.
there's also this intriguing idea that by giving taxpayers a dividend from the savings,
Yeah.
you could shift their mindset and create a sense of equity in America.
Right.
What do you make of that?
I find that to be one of the more compelling arguments in the video.
Okay.
It touches on the idea of incentivizing citizens to care about government spending and efficiency.
Right.
If people feel like they have a direct stake in reducing waste,
Mm-hmm.
they might be more likely to support policies aimed at achieving that.
It's like the old saying, if you want something done right, do it yourself.
Exactly.
But in this case, it's more like, if you want the government to spend your money wisely,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you get a cut of the savings.
Right.
Yeah.
It creates a sense of shared responsibility.
Okay.
The video uses an analogy of a business owner wanting equity in their company.
Right.
They have skin in the game,
Mm-hmm.
so they're motivated to see the business succeed.
The video then makes a rather pointed claim
Okay.
that this whole Dogecoin dividend concept is scary for Democrats.
Hmm.
What's the logic there?
It's important to note that the video is coming from a particular perspective
Sure.
and has a clear political leaning.
Mm.
Their argument is that if a Republican president were to implement this system
Right.
and it led to tangible benefits for taxpayers,
Mm-hmm.
it could significantly boost their approval ratings
Right.
and create a lasting political advantage.
So essentially they're saying it would be a political win for Republicans and a potential threat to Democrats?
That's the implication, yes.
Okay.
But it's worth considering whether such a system,
Mm-hmm.
if it were truly effective,
Right.
could have bipartisan appeal.
Yeah.
After all, who wouldn't want a more efficient government and a little extra money in their pocket?
That's a great point.
Yeah,
It's easy to get caught up in the partisan framing,
right.
but the potential benefits of reducing waste and fraud are something everyone should be able to get behind.
Absolutely.
Now let's shift gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about another striking statement that the video makes.
All right.
America is rich but broke.
Hmm.
That seems like a bit of a paradox.
It does.
Can you unpack that for us?
It's a great way to frame the challenge that we face as a nation.
Okay.
On one hand, the United States has immense wealth and resources.
Right.
We have a thriving private sector,
Yeah.
innovative companies,
Uh-huh.
and a highly skilled workforce.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, we're saddled with a massive national debt.
Okay.
And there's a growing sense that our government is struggling to manage its finances effectively.
The video touches on some potential solutions,
Yeah.
like implementing oil extraction taxes. But it's clear that addressing the national debt is a complex issue
Oh, yeah,
with no easy answers.
definitely.
Now for a little detour into the world of customer service.
Okay.
Because why not?
All right.
The video shares an anecdote about a rude restaurant hostess who refused to seat the host at a table he wanted, even though the restaurant was practically empty.
Interesting.
And then they connect this experience back to the theme of government inefficiency. They ask, could firing ineffective government employees and forcing them to compete in the free market lead to better service overall?
It's an interesting analogy.
Yeah.
Though it might be a bit of an oversimplification to compare government bureaucracy to the service industry.
Sure.
But the underlying point is that accountability and competition can often drive improvement.
So could applying some free market principles to government lead to a more customer-focused approach?
It's definitely something to ponder.
It is.
Yeah.
Finally, the video leaves us with a rather surprising statistic.
Okay.
They claim that Bloomberg recently reported that 48% of Americans believe the country is heading in the right direction.
Wow.
That's the highest percentage ever recorded
Really?
in the history of their right direction survey.
That's incredible.
That seems pretty optimistic.
It does.
Given all the political division and economic challenges we've been facing,
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
It's certainly a noteworthy data point. But it's important to remember that public opinion can be influenced by a variety of factors,
Sure.
including economic conditions,
Mm-hmm.
media narratives,
Okay.
and even the political climate.
Right.
It's just one piece of a larger puzzle.
All right. So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've explored the idea of Dogecoin dividends,
Mm-hmm.
the potential economic implications of reducing fraud,
Uh-huh.
the concept of equity in America,
Right.
and even the role of competition in improving government services.
Yeah.
But this is just the beginning.
Okay.
We've got plenty more to unpack in this valuetainment video.
Sounds good.
So stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll delve even further into these fascinating ideas.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back to our deep dive
Yeah.
into this thought-provoking valuetainment video.
Okay.
We've been kind of dissecting some bold claims about
Yes.
Dogecoin,
Right.
government waste,
Yeah.
and the economic implications of reducing fraud.
It's a lot.
It is. Yeah. Before we move on, I think it's worth circling back
Okay.
to that 48% statistic about Americans
Right.
feeling optimistic about the country's direction.
Mhm.
It seems to tie into another interesting concept that the video explores.
Okay.
The idea that we're currently living in a golden age.
Oh, yeah. The video does paint a rather optimistic picture,
Yeah.
contrasting the current state of affairs with what they perceive as our previous period of decline.
Mm.
They even use a clip from the movie The Hangover,
Uh-huh.
where the characters are shouting, "We're back!"
Okay.
to illustrate their point.
Interesting.
But is it really accurate to call this a golden age?
Right.
Especially given the very real challenges we face as a nation.
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The video does point to positive economic indicators,
Okay.
like record low unemployment,
Right.
strong GDP growth, as evidence for their claim.
Mm-hmm.
They also talk about a renewed sense of national pride and optimism.
But those economic gains haven't been felt equally across all segments of society.
Right.
And let's not forget the deep political divisions and social unrest we've witnessed in recent years.
You bring up a crucial point.
Yeah.
While certain economic indicators might be strong,
Mm-hmm.
the video doesn't adequately address the issue of economic inequality.
Right.
And as you mentioned,
Yeah.
political polarization and social tensions are very real concerns
Mm-hmm.
that can't simply be brushed aside.
It seems like the video is kind of cherry-picking data points to
Yeah.
support their golden age narrative,
It does seem that way.
while overlooking some of the more complex and nuanced realities on the ground.
Yeah, that's a valid observation.
Okay.
It's important to approach any claim,
Right.
especially one as sweeping as this,
Yeah.
with a healthy dose of critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
We need to look beyond the surface
All right.
and examine the evidence carefully.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we've talked about Dogecoin dividends,
Right.
government waste,
Mm-hmm.
the golden age argument, and even the economic implications of reducing fraud.
Yeah, a lot.
But there's one more thread in this video that I'm curious to kind of unravel.
Okay.
It involves this seemingly unrelated anecdote about restaurant service
All right.
and how it connects to the idea of government efficiency.
Yeah, this is where the video takes an interesting,
Right.
albeit somewhat tangential, turn.
Okay.
The host recounts two very different experiences he had at restaurants.
Okay, the first involves a rude hostess
Right.
who refused to seat him at a table he wanted,
Yeah.
even though the restaurant was practically empty.
Oh, wow.
And the second experience involved exceptional service
Okay.
from a waiter who went above and beyond
Mm-hmm.
to ensure a positive dining experience.
Interesting.
And the video uses these contrasting anecdotes
Yeah.
to make a point about the potential for improvement in government services.
I see.
They argue that if ineffective government employees were fired and forced to compete in the free market, they would have to step up their customer service game to survive.
Okay.
Just like in the restaurant industry,
Right.
where good service is rewarded and poor service is punished.
Interesting.
It's a thought-provoking analogy.
It is.
Could injecting some free market principles into government actually lead to better service for citizens?
It's certainly an interesting thought experiment.
Yeah.
However, it's crucial to recognize
Okay.
that there are fundamental differences
Mm-hmm.
between the public and private sectors.
Okay.
Government agencies aren't driven by profit motives
Right.
in the same way that businesses are.
Mm-hmm.
Their primary goal is to provide essential services to the public,
Right.
often to those who might not be able to afford them
Okay.
in a purely free market system.
That's a crucial distinction.
It is.
While efficiency and customer service are important,
Yeah.
we can't lose sight of the core mission of government,
Right.
which is to serve the needs of all citizens.
Exactly.
Not just those who can pay the most.
Pres-
The video's analogy,
Mhm.
while attention-grabbing,
Mm-hmm.
oversimplifies a complex issue.
It does.
So where does this leave us?
Yeah.
We've explored a range of ideas,
Yeah.
from using Dogecoin to combat government waste,
Mm-hmm.
to the potential economic impact of reducing fraud.
Right.
We've also examined the golden age argument
Yeah.
and the intriguing,
Yeah.
if somewhat flawed, analogy
Right.
between restaurant service and government efficiency.
I think the real value of this deep dive
Mm-hmm.
lies not necessarily in agreeing or disagreeing
Okay.
at every point the video makes,
Sure.
but in the questions it raises.
I agree.
Yeah.
It sparked a fascinating conversation
Yeah.
about the role of government, the challenges facing our nation,
Uh-huh.
and the potential solutions that might exist.
Right.
But we're not done yet.
Oh.
There are a few more intriguing threads in this valuetainment video
Right.
that we need to explore.
All right.
Stay with us as we continue our deep dive in the final part of this episode. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into this valuetainment video.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey,
It has.
exploring their bold claims about Dogecoin,
Mm-hmm.
government waste,
Yeah.
and even the potential for a golden age in America.
It's been a lot.
Before we wrap up,
Okay.
I wanted to touch on one more point that stood out to me.
Okay.
It's this idea that competition
Right.
and accountability concepts often associated with the private sector
Yeah.
could actually be applied to improve government services.
It's a provocative idea.
It is.
The video used the analogy of a restaurant,
Uh-huh.
contrasting a rude hostess with an exceptional waiter
Right.
to illustrate the point.
And the implication was that if government employees had to worry about losing their jobs due to poor performance,
Yeah.
they might be more motivated to provide better service.
That's an interesting thought experiment.
It is.
But as we discussed earlier, applying free market principles to government isn't so straightforward.
Okay.
Government agencies have a different set of priorities
Mhm.
and operate under different constraints than private businesses.
But could there be a middle ground?
Hmm.
Are there ways to foster a culture of accountability and customer service within government
Yeah.
without compromising its core mission of serving the public good?
That's a question worth exploring.
It is.
Perhaps by setting clear performance metrics,
Okay.
encouraging citizen feedback, and streamlining bureaucratic processes,
Right.
we could create a more responsive and efficient government.
So what are your final takeaways from this deep dive?
Oh, let me think.
What should our listeners be thinking about
Yeah.
as they process all of these ideas?
I think the most important takeaway is the value of critical thinking.
Okay.
Whether you agree or disagree with the specific claims made in the video, it's essential to approach these kinds of discussions with a discerning eye.
Right.
Don't just accept everything at face value.
Uh-huh.
Question assumptions.
Okay.
Consider different perspectives.
Right.
And do your own research.
It's easy to get swept up in the rhetoric,
Oh, yeah.
especially when it comes to politics and economics.
It is.
But it's crucial to step back and think for ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The video touched on some incredibly complex issues,
Did.
from national debt
Uh-huh.
to political polarization
Right.
to the role of technology in governance.
Yeah.
These are challenges that require careful analysis and nuanced solutions.
So where do we go from here?
Well,
What can we as individuals do
yeah.
to engage with these issues in a meaningful way?
I think the first step is to stay informed.
Okay.
Read widely, listen to diverse perspectives,
Right.
and engage in thoughtful conversations.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to challenge your own beliefs
Okay.
and be open to learning new things.
And don't underestimate the power of your voice.
No, you're right.
Contact your elected officials.
Yeah.
Participate in community discussions. And advocate for the changes you want to see.
Remember, a well-informed and engaged citizenry is the foundation of a healthy democracy.
So could Dogecoin really be the answer to all of our problems?
Probably not,
Probably not.
but the conversation it sparked is certainly worth having.
I agree.
Yeah.
And perhaps along the way, we can all learn to appreciate the value of good customer service, whether it's from the government or our favorite local restaurant.
That's a good point.
Well said.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, this was great.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise.
We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration of information and perspectives.